Hello, and welcome to Taming an Unruly Process. My name is Steve McCarty. Have you ever received an email, put it on your to-do list, and then realized a month later that it was still there? Well, when that email is part of a process that is getting important devices out to your end users, then delays like that can cause serious problems. Today, we're going to look at a process that we had here at ArcBest that was driven mostly through email, and try and figure out, and I'm going to show you how we use ServiceNow to improve that process, to tame it, and make it a wonderful experience for our end users. So let's get started. Well, first off, let's talk about who is ArcBest. Well, ArcBest is a logistics and supply chain company. We offer a variety of solutions to our customers through an integrated set of offerings from a number of different subsidiaries. The largest subsidiary is ABF Freight. ABF Freight is an LTL trucking company, which means they send a driver to a customer's door, pick up freight, take that back to one of our service centers, combine that with other freight, move it across the country, and then separate it out to make deliveries at the final destination. Now, through that process, our ABF drivers use handheld devices to keep track of which deliveries they need to make, where they need to go for their next pickup, get customers to sign for that freight and say that, yeah, we received it, yes, it's been delivered. We also have handheld devices on our forklifts that the dock workers use to tell them which door to go to, which piece of freight to pick up out of one trailer, put to another. Now, over the years, these handheld devices have become critical to ABS business to keep it moving through, to keep freight moving through the system. Now, anytime they need a new device, they had to order one from our IT department. Now, first we're going to look at what the old process was. Whenever a user at a service center decided, hey, I need a new device, the first thing they would do is send an email. That email would go to their IT support person, and then more emails would usually go to their regional vice president to say, hey, I need these. This is the kind of device I need. This is what I want it to do. And we would, converse back and forth through email. Once they picked how many devices they needed and what type they wanted, IT support would send an email to our purchasing department. Purchasing department would then have to go back to the regional vice president to get approval for that purchase. Then they would place the order for those devices, wait however long it took the vendor to supply them. Then when they got there, they'd send an email and those devices onto our rollout team. The rollout team would then have to get serial numbers, SIM numbers, IMEIs of those devices, send all that off to our cellular carriers to get the devices activated, and then load all the apps on those devices, which that process took a little bit of time. After that was done, they'd package them up, box them up, and ship them back to the user. Now, one problem with this process is that the user had no way of knowing where the devices were in this jumbled mess of arrows. So they would have to send an email out to their IT support person. So then that would spawn more emails out to the purchasing group or the rollout group, depending on where we were, and lots of things would go back and forth. As you can guess, with a process that cluttered, there were a lot of potential problems. First off, ABF has over 200 service centers throughout the US and Canada. They also have 10 different regions, which means there's 10 regional vice presidents, and each one of them has different schedules, different ways of sending emails, and it makes it difficult to keep track of all of these devices as they come and go. Now, if an email gets lost or misdirected or sent to the wrong place, that tends to cause a flurry of email going back and forth between all the different people involved, and it gets confusing whether they're talking about an old request, a new request, which devices are we trying to get, and it becomes difficult to manage. Plus, if someone's on vacation or happens to leave the company, any emails going to that person suddenly get stuck and nobody's responding to them, so that causes more emails to people that weren't involved in the original chain, and so then they're trying to read through this big long chain of email to figure out what devices we're talking about, figure out where they are, which makes things confusing. We were also placing orders for each request, which means we were getting small orders, just a couple of devices at a time. That leads to an increase in cost, and it takes a long time to get devices in sometimes, depending on the manufacturer and the supplier that we have available. Lastly, our rollout group had no idea any of these requests were coming until they showed up on their desk. So as soon as they showed up, they had to drop other things that they were doing, rearrange their schedule all of a sudden, and work on these very important devices to make sure that they got sent out to the user as quickly as possible. So we decided that we needed a better way to do this. So we took the process, we looked at all the pieces, tried to figure out where we had the most issues, and designed a new process inside ServiceNow using typical ServiceNow forms and list views and all that kind of stuff to make this process a much smoother road. So the new process still starts with a user. The user says, hey, I need a new device. Maybe we hired a new driver. Maybe we got a new forklift operator. They need a new device. So instead of sending an email, they now go to our service catalog. And they fill out a real simple form. It has 6 questions on it, and the first 2 are filled in for them. Once they submit that form, it creates a record in ServiceNow, and ServiceNow then creates an approval record that gets sent out to an external system well, it's internal to us, external to ServiceNow, but it's a queue that they're used to working out of, where they do all their vacation requests and a bunch of other things. So they see those requests as soon as they show up. They're able to work through them, look at the request to see the reasons that the user wanted new devices, ask questions if they need to, and once it's approved by the group in our Service Center Operations group here at the general office, then it goes back to the regional vice president for final approval to say, yeah, we can spend some money to buy those devices. Once we get that approval sent back into ServiceNow, all this happens automatically through a workflow. A notification is sent to the IT support staff. There's also a counter on their dashboard that says, hey, there's now a request that needs to be reviewed. They look through the request, see what type of device the user has requested, see what carrier they're using, mark all of that in the form, and pass that on to our rollout team. Now, our rollout team still has to go find the devices, get the serial numbers, IMEIs, SIM cards, and collect all of that information. But now, since we're using ServiceNow, we have a nice UI page that they can just go use a barcode scanner, put in all that information very quickly, generate a report from ServiceNow that they can send to the subcarrier that allows them to very quickly send those activations out. And then the rollout request can automatically update our mobile device management software to tell it what type of apps need to be loaded on these devices, which makes that process much faster as well. So once they get all that set up, they still have to package the devices and ship them. And when they do that, they also go in and update that form to tell the user what the tracking number is on their devices. So the user can go back out to the service catalog at any time in this process and see exactly where their request is, who it's waiting on, who's done their part, and as soon as it gets to the rollout team, there's an estimated ship date, so they can be expecting their devices within a couple of days from that ship date. And again, it eliminates a lot of the questions about where it is in the process and gets rid of all of the mystery of who's got my devices. So this is the form on our service catalog that the end user would fill out. Notice there's just a few questions here, and the first 2 are already filled out for them. Since they have to be logged into our system to get to our service catalog, we already know who they are and we know what service center they work for. So then the next 2 questions are just radio buttons they fill out to say which type of devices they need. And they have to put in a quantity and then finally a reason that they want these devices. That reason can be anything from, hey, we lost some, to, hey, we hired a new driver, to, I was just bored and thought I'd fill this form out. Whatever reason they put in there, that's what gets passed on to the regional vice president for their approval. So it's kind of important they put something good there, but that's between them and their management. Now, this is the form that our internal IT people will see. So after the approvals are done, all the information gets put onto this form. The top section, as you can see, is the original request from the user that has just what type of device they wanted, how many they asked for, and then any notes they put in are down in the work notes at the bottom of the form. There are also related lists at the bottom that you can't see here that have information about the approvers and a list of all the devices that are in use at this service center currently. From that, the support person can look at any notes the approver put in, any requests, any information the user put in, and the device job that they've picked to pick the correct type of devices, the right cellular carrier, and the quantity that needs to be sent. Once they're done with that, they hit the Mark as Reviewed button, and that will move this form on to our rollout team. The rollout team works out of ServiceNow all the time, so they have a dashboard that shows them, hey, there's now another handheld rollout request you need to set up. They knew it was coming because it was already out there as soon as the user put it in, and they can then go through and pick up the devices they need. The devices there's a UI page for them to go put in all the information that they have to collect with the SIM numbers, serial numbers, IMEI. It lists out all the handheld rollouts that are currently open and how many devices need to go for each. When they scan in those when they scan in the serial numbers and IMEI and SIM numbers, they put all that into this form, hit the submit button at the top, and then all that information is automatically put back into that handheld rollout request and put into a report that they can grab and send off to the carrier for activations of the devices. Now, of course, you're going to wonder, I mean, obviously, just looking at the pictures of the process, you can say, hey, it looks like we went from driving around on back roads without a map to just driving down the freeway with a GPS. And it really was that much of a difference. We've been able to reduce the time it takes to do these requests from months, sometimes several months, down to just days. Most requests from the time the user requested to the time we ship devices to them is less than a week. This process is also very consistent now, and that consistency allows us to do a lot better reporting on how many devices we set up, where those devices are going, what types of devices we have out there, and lots of other things that people have asked about. A big key on this is everyone has visibility, which means it doesn't matter which user at the service center creates the request. Anybody at that service center can see it. It doesn't matter which support person is reviewing the request because all of the support people can see this request. So if the one person that was looking at it before is on vacation, somebody else can finish it up and fill it out. We also were able to improve the ordering process. If you noticed in the improved process, purchasing was not actually in that loop anywhere. Because we've been able to make this a consistent process that has good controls on when devices come and go, we have a good handle on where the devices are going, who approved them, and how many are there. We've been able to order a pool of devices that we keep here at our general office. And so anytime we have a request come in, we can just take devices out of that pool. By ordering devices in a pool, we get better pricing because we buy items in bulk. Plus, we're saving money on shipping because we're not having one or two items shipped to us at a time. We can ship a large quantity at once. Now, this also has led to better planning for our rollout team because, again, they know and can see what devices are coming up, what requests have been made even before they're approved. We can know that, hey, we've got a whole bunch of requests that have come in over the past couple of days. We're probably going to need to reschedule some things, move some stuff around, and keep people informed as to what's going on. Now, I'm sure you're asking, okay, how long have they been doing this? Is this really a big thing? Is this a big deal? Well, we've been using this process for 4 years now, and that's a long time for us. In that 4 years, we've gone through 2,000 of these requests. So this is not something we're doing once or twice a day or once or twice a month. We're going through a lot of these requests very often. and that's for 13,000 devices that we've sent out. In fact, last summer we were able to use this process to do about 4,000 devices in less than 3 months. Now, because this process has worked so well, we've expanded from the original 3 device jobs that we had for these devices 4 years ago to 11 different device jobs. So there are 11 different things that these devices are being used for. They get different types of device, different apps loaded, and all of that is controlled through this process in ServiceNow. And of course, there's always more to come. As new devices are added or as we build new processes, ServiceNow has become a place that we've looked for lots of ways to use. We're planning on using a similar process to start controlling all of our computer, PC, hard laptop rollouts. We've got lots of other things in the works, possibly doing integrations with other systems and many, many more things to come. So the next time you have to go dig up an email that you got a month ago, you might want to take a minute, look at that process and see, is this something that we can streamline and tame with ServiceNow to make this a better experience, not only for you, but for all of your users involved as well. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.